He'll straighten this out.
Pudgy Walsh retired, sir.
Tony thought he owned his mansion, but really, the mansion owned him.
Your uncle may turn out to be the right man for the job.
Of all the questions surrounding The Sopranos, one of the more endearing mysteries is how Tony Soprano managed to bankroll his suburban palace long before he officially became boss. No other capo in the show flaunts a home quite like his.
Come on, get inside.
He better be.
Carmela and Tony have been in North Caldwell for years by the time the series opens, yet the other captains seem to live in relatively modest homes. Well, modest by mob standards. Did Tony have some secret golden goose? Or was it simply good financial housekeeping from a man otherwise incapable of moderation? The obvious production answer, that the pilot was filmed with Tony already envisioned as boss, is too neat to satisfy. Within the narrative, however, several explanations emerge.
Yakinelli Home Inspections?
Yeah, come on in. These are our cousins Hugh and Carmela. They're also the builders.
First, Tony got the land and construction at a deep discount, thanks to Carmela's father, Hugh DeAngelis.
Get Pudgy Walsh on the horn. He'll straighten this out.
Pudgy Walsh retired, sir.
Hugh was a contractor of the corners aren't just cut, they're shaved down to splinters variety. Add in a union inspector or two on the take, Pudgy Walsh anyone, and suddenly a million-plus property looks more like an inflated DIY project.
Especially after his dad died. He was little, I used to give him rides.
Second, Johnny Boy's death left Tony in the enviable position of inheriting both his father's rackets and his legitimate income streams. In mob terms, Tony was born on third base and happily believed he hit a triple. Unlike his peers, Tony also had an unusual surplus of legitimate income.
We're paying an Anthony Soprano, second highest salary in the company.
His no-show job at Barone Sanitation pulled in about $200,000 a year.
You gonna be at the Bing tomorrow?
While Satriali's and the Bada Bing padded that with another tidy sum. By conservative estimates, Tony had around $300,000 in legal income in the mid-1990s, the equivalent of over $600,000 today.
This fucking busted police. He's worth every cent of his cut.
Factor in skimmed construction contracts, gambling rackets, and the sanitation union, and he wasn't just a top earner.
For $7,000 a month, less than Dick.
So they pay us 40 times a month for stealing a stop.
He was a financial wunderkind in a business where most men blew their money on gambling, women, and overpriced dinners. Contrast this with his contemporaries. Paulie lived in a glorified bachelor's pad, more interested in flashy suits than drywall.
The spill, Mel. Jesus. I wish his fucking trial would happen already. I'm hemorrhaging spondulics here.
Junior sat on millions, only to see it vanish into legal fees. Pussy had a decent house, but hardly a mansion. Silvio and Chrissy eventually upgraded, but that came later. Bobby only managed a lake house after climbing the ladder.
Is Paris burning?
Hi, you busy?
And Jackie Aprile Sr., supposedly Tony's equal, left row enough to survive comfortably, but not extravagantly. She could shop Dior in Paris, sure, but she wasn't sitting on the kind of ostentatious wealth Tony displayed every time he pulled into his circular driveway.
There's some guy in your driveway with a ponytail? What is his story?
Tony's house, then, is less about affordability than optics. He positioned himself not as a traditional mobster clinging to old-world modesty, but as an affluent suburban patriarch. The contradiction is the point.
Right? Yeah. Don't buy him anything big. We overindulge.
A man screaming about the dangers of ostentation while living in a house with a pool, a garden, and drywall thin enough for him to punch through during domestic squabbles.
Because of RICO. You know, the government's using electronic surveillance.
The FBI kept close watch on obvious displays of wealth, which meant mobsters typically laundered their excess into more discreet channels. Tony, however, had W-2 income to legitimize the property. For him, the McMansion wasn't an indulgence, it was camouflage. There's also the matter of timing. In the 1980s and early 90s, the American dream was still relatively affordable, especially with mob connections greasing construction and mortgage wheels. Tony was promoted to Captain Young, early 30s at the latest, thanks to his father's illness. That gave him years of skimming profits from subordinates and schemes, while his peers were still hustling as soldiers. By the time he was 35,
Job site, then we got carpet. What's the problem?
Tony had both the money and the union connections to buy as much house as you can afford, as the financial magazines of the day advised.
They pay out millions of dollars every day to doctors, hospitals.
Unlike Paulie shaking down landscapers, Tony was pulling off multi-million-dollar scams involving health insurance and construction contracts.
Man, what the fuck are you doing?
I'm trimming a lawn.
It's worth noting, though, that Tony was hardly the disciplined money manager Carmela might have hoped for.
Big show of giving me a Vic. $3,000 a week.
As Hesh once observed, Tony was a reckless spender. Property taxes, irregular cash flow, Meadows' tuition, and his compulsive splurges routinely left him cash poor.
I pictured your house different.
The grand house became both a trophy and a trap, a monument to his success and a constant financial liability. He yelled at subordinates for flaunting wealth too soon.
The property taxes, I know.
Hello to you too.
But he himself lived in a house that screamed middle-class respectability while costing a small fortune to maintain.
You're supposed to be earnest. That's what got the top-tier position.
In the broader mob landscape, wealth didn't strictly follow hierarchy. A capo kicking up a percentage could still keep most of his income, and a talented earner might rival or even outpace his boss. Hesh, technically outside the hierarchy, was richer than most made men. Tony and Jackie Sr. were the Wonder Boys, the star earners of their generation.
Actually, he's in waste management.
That financial talent, combined with W-2 income and a father-in-law willing to shave every corner in construction, gave Tony a financial base his peers lacked. By the time the series begins, the house isn't simply a set piece, it's a symbol. The great irony of Tony Soprano is that he spent his career trying not to attract attention while sitting in a two-story monument to his success. The McMansion embodies the duality of his character, a man desperate to appear legitimate while chained to an empire built on scams, shakedowns, and blood money. It is suburbia as camouflage, drywall as destiny. So how did Tony afford it? Through a cocktail of nepotism, illicit ingenuity, inherited rackets, and enough legitimate income to keep the IRS at bay. In other words, the American dream Soprano style, funded by waste management, sealed with union favors,
A nice brick house? I made the down payment.
and held together with drywall thin enough to crumble under a single punch. Tony's house was held together with drywall and mob money. This channel, it's held together by your likes and subscribes.